I grew up in a quiet town in New Hampshire. Back in my early 20s, I lived about 30 minutes outside Manchester. My life then was a jumble of uncertainty. I had just broken up with my girlfriend of 2 years and was grappling with a strange sense of aimlessness. My grandmother, deeply religious, had become my anchor. After my grandfather passed, I started attending church with her every Sunday. She leaned on her faith, her unwavering belief that my grandfather had finally reunited with the Lord, and I admired her serenity. I hoped to find that same sense of peace. One Sunday, after the service, I met Kaylee. She stood out immediately, dark curly hair, hazel eyes that seemed to see right through you. Our community was close-knit, and seeing someone new was rare. I approached her, half out of curiosity, half because of an unshakable attraction. Kaylee had an air of mystery about her, and I was hooked. Over the next week, we texted constantly, and by the following Sunday, I mustered the courage to ask her out. She said yes without hesitation, her smile electrifying. Our first date was simple, a movie followed by dinner. She opened up about her past, a troubled family life, a move to escape her abusive father. I felt protective of her, drawn to her vulnerability. After dinner, I suggested a drive. We headed out of town, down a winding 2-lane highway surrounded by trees. The night felt perfect, but perfection can shatter in an instant. Kaylee started speaking, her voice low and rapid, in a language I didn't recognize. Her hazel eyes rolled back, leaving only whites visible. Panic seized me. I swerved, narrowly avoiding the guardrail. I pulled over, shaking, and called an ambulance, convinced she was having a seizure. But then she stopped. Her eyes snapped back to normal, and she stared at me, wide-eyed. Without a word, she bolted from the car and disappeared into the woods. I sat frozen, my mind racing. The paramedics and police arrived, but Kaylee was gone. No trace of her ever turned up. Her Instagram vanished, her number was disconnected, and no one at church remembered seeing her. It was as if she had never existed. The memory of her haunted me, her disappearance a scar on my psyche. Years later, I moved to Nevada, chasing a fresh start. One summer, I took a road trip to visit an old friend. On my way back, I hit a thunderstorm, the kind you only see in movies. My car, a beat-up Volvo with malfunctioning wipers, forced me to pull over into the desert. The rain poured relentlessly, and as the sun set, the isolation began to gnaw at me. Then came the lights, bright, erratic flashes in the distance, growing closer. Instinct took over. I grabbed my phone and bolted from the car, hiding behind a rock formation. 3 figures emerged, their flashlights flickering like they were dancing. They circled my car, their movements erratic, almost inhuman. One fired a gun into the air, the crack of the shot freezing me in place. I called, whispering my situation. The figures vanished the moment police lights appeared. The officers found nothing but my terrified self. I haven't taken a road trip since. A few months later, my friend Carol and I drove from Florida to New Jersey. We stopped in what we thought was a lively tourist town, but the streets were eerily empty, the buildings weathered and lifeless. Inside a convenience store, I met a cashier whose face stuck with me. Moments later, at another store, I saw her again. The same face, same features. But when I returned to the first store to confirm, the cashier was entirely different. Unease settled in as we continued our journey. At a gas station, empty when we arrived, the lot suddenly filled with cars and people within minutes. They stared at us, their eyes unblinking. On the road again, a minivan with a cracked windshield passed us. Twice. The impossibility of it all left us shaken. By the time we reached home, the entire trip felt like a surreal dream, a memory out of place. These events, scattered across years, seemed unrelated at first. But in quiet moments, I'd recall Kaylee's wide-eyed stare, the dancing flashlights in the desert, the impossibly familiar cashier. Patterns emerged, connections I couldn't ignore. It was as if something, someone, was watching, orchestrating. Kaylee's disappearance wasn't an isolated incident. It was the beginning. Now every shadow feels deeper, every silence heavier. The world doesn't feel the same. I don't feel the same. And I can't shake the feeling that it's not over. Whatever it is, it's still out there, waiting, watching.